The moment I realized something was wrong was when a man typed, "Relax. I'm untouchable," right after admitting he'd ruined lives. I was inside a dark web forum that didn't allow screenshots, didn't allow usernames to be changed, and didn't care about laws. People there spoke freely about things most humans would never say out loud. One guy joked about dumping toxic waste near a town. Another bragged about buying silence after a girl disappeared. No fear, no panic, just confidence. When someone finally asked, "What if the police trace this?" the reply came instantly, "They already tried." That line stuck with me. I watched the thread grow, and every time someone mentioned arrests or investigations, the answers were calm, almost amused. Then someone posted a link, no explanation, just, "This is why none of us worry." I hesitated before clicking, because even on the dark web, some links are warnings. When the page loaded, it wasn't chaotic or disturbing like most illegal sites. It was clean, quiet, professional, black background, white text, no images, no logos, just a single sentence at the top that said, "We don't protect criminals. We make them invisible." My chest tightened. As I scrolled, the services appeared one by one, written like a luxury menu. Digital identity removal, evidence contamination, witness redirection, legal pressure services, media silence packages. Every option had a price, and every price was in the millions. This wasn't built for regular criminals. This was built for people with power. The kind who don't want to escape justice. They want justice to never reach them. At the bottom of the page was a warning that felt more like a promise. If law enforcement is involved, you waited too long. That's when I understood the confidence in that forum. These people weren't hiding anymore. They believed they were beyond consequences. And as I kept reading, one detail made my hand shake. The service claimed it had already interfered with active federal investigations. Not past cases, active ones. That meant someone somewhere was already using this to erase trails in real time. And suddenly, the disappearances I'd been reading about for months didn't feel random anymore. They felt protected. I couldn't sleep after that, because once you see something like this, it follows you. The next night I went back in, using a fresh setup, slower this time, watching instead of clicking. The forum had changed its tone. People weren't bragging anymore. They were reporting results. One user said an investigation into his company collapsed overnight. Another said a journalist suddenly retracted a story and disappeared from social media. Someone else typed, "They fixed my problem in 48 hours. That's when a private message hit my inbox. No greeting. Just a question. "You're new. Are you watching or shopping?" I didn't reply, but they kept typing anyway, like they already knew the answer. They explained the service without selling it, which scared me more. They said it worked like layers, burner identities stacked on top of real ones, fake evidence seeded into police databases, legal pressure quietly applied to the right people, judges reassigned, warrants delayed, witnesses confused, not threatened, just redirected. "Fear causes mistakes," they wrote. "We remove fear." Then came the line that made me sit back from a screen. "We don't stop the law. We drown it." I asked one question, carefully typed, pretending curiosity instead of panic. "Has anyone ever failed?" The reply took a while. When it came, it was short. "Yes." He talked. The thread went silent after that. No emojis. No jokes. Just silence. That's when I realized this service wasn't just protection. It was enforcement. And the people using it weren't just rich criminals. They were connected, coordinated, and confident because they believed no one on the outside could see the full picture. What they didn't know was that I wasn't the only one watching anymore. By the third night, I stopped pretending this was curiosity. I started mapping patterns. Usernames that never argued. Posts that always ended conversations. Accounts that others treated carefully. Like stepping around broken glass. Those were the real ones. Not loud. Not flashy. Quiet authority. One of them finally spoke directly in the main thread, and everything froze. He wrote, "There's chatter about leaks. That ends now." No threats. No explanation. And still, people apologized. Minutes later, entire conversations vanished like they had never existed. Not deleted, erased. Even quoted replies were gone. I checked my local logs, my memory cache, everything I could without doing anything reckless. It was clean. Too clean. That's when a new post appeared, pinned to the top, announcing a service update. They weren't hiding anymore. They were flexing. It explained that their protection wasn't just digital. It reached banks, contractors, zoning boards, private investigators, even nonprofit groups that worked with victims. They didn't need to bribe everyone. They just needed to nudge the right pressure points. A delayed payment here. A sudden audit there. A reputation quietly questioned. Careers don't end loudly, they end tired. And as I read through the comments, something clicked. The missing girls from different towns. The stalled cases. The evidence that always seemed insufficient. It wasn't that no one cared. It was that every path toward the truth slowly bent away from it. One user casually mentioned a city I recognized. My city. He joked about a clean sweep last year, and someone replied, "That was expensive." My hands went cold. I opened old files I'd saved months ago, stories I thought were unrelated, and lined them up with the dates being discussed. They matched. Too perfectly. I wasn't looking at theory anymore. I was looking at a system that had already worked. And then I made a mistake. I stayed logged in too long. A notification appeared, not in the forum, but embedded into the page itself, like the site was speaking directly to me. "Observers become liabilities," it said. My heart started racing. Another message followed, calmer, almost friendly. "You seem intelligent. Intelligent people choose sides." That's when I knew this wasn't a place you could simply leave. You were either a client or a problem. I disconnected everything, shut down hard, sat in the dark listening to my own breathing, realizing the scariest part wasn't that these people felt untouchable. It was that they were right so far. I stayed offline for 2 days, long enough for the silence to feel heavier than the risk. Every knock outside my apartment made my stomach tighten. Every unknown car felt closer than it should. When I finally powered back on, I didn't go looking for them. I looked for what they missed. Powerful systems always leave cracks because they trust themselves too much. I rebuilt the timeline from public records, boring stuff no one brags about, budget reports, contractor bids, zoning delays, nonprofits losing funding without explanation. It was slow and ugly work, but patterns don't care about fear. A shell company here matched a maintenance delay there. A legal firm tied to a dismissed case showed up again and again, always one step away from where things quietly died. Then I noticed something small that shouldn't have mattered. A rushed payment, misdated by hours, logged twice by 2 different banks. It wasn't proof, but it was a thread. I followed it carefully, never touching their world again, and it led to a network of fixers who didn't erase crimes. They redirected attention. Reports didn't disappear. They were buried under noise. Witnesses weren't threatened. They were discredited. And when I overlaid that map with the missing girls' cases, the overlap hit like a punch. Same fixers. Same delays. Same outcome. I wanted to stop, to pretend this was coincidence. But then I found a memo written in plain language. Not hidden at all, because no one thought to look there. It described a risk neutralization service for high-value clients, paid in advance, with performance bonuses for case exhaustion. That phrase kept echoing in my head. Case exhaustion. Not innocence. Not justice. Just making people too tired to keep going. That's when I understood the service didn't make you untouchable by hiding you. It made the world give up on touching you at all. And I also understood something else. Something that changed everything. I couldn't expose this alone. If I tried, I'd be erased quietly, legally, permanently. I needed people who couldn't be nudged, couldn't be tired out, and couldn't be bought. So I did the one thing they didn't expect. I stepped into the light. I didn't go public, and I didn't go loud. I went precise. I reached out to one place through a channel that doesn't ask questions first and doesn't leave traces after. The kind of contact used only when something is already burning. I gave them fragments, not conclusions. Dates without theories. Names without accusations. At first there was nothing. Then a single response came back asking for one thing. I almost didn't have any more patience. Weeks passed, and during that time the dark web forums changed again. The confidence cracked. Posts stopped mid-sentence. Accounts that once commanded silence vanished without ceremony. Someone wrote, "Is anyone else having trouble?" And no one answered. Then came the panic, disguised as jokes, then the sudden loyalty tests. Say where you stand. One message demanded. I stayed invisible. On the surface, nothing happened in the real world. No headlines. No arrests. That's how I knew it was real. The kind of investigations that matter don't announce themselves. They move quietly, pulling threads at once so nothing snaps too early. One night, the forum tried to come back online after hours of downtime, but the service page didn't load the same. The language was different. The prices were gone. And the sentence at the bottom, the one that promised safety, was missing. In its place was something short and careless, like it had been written in a hurry. Temporary disruption. That's when messages started leaking out of private channels, desperate ones, asking if protection still applied, if past guarantees still held. Someone typed, "They said we were untouchable." And another replied, "They didn't say for how long." I watched as the system that thrived on calm began to choke on uncertainty. And deep down, I knew the most dangerous moment wasn't when criminals feel hunted. It's when they realize they were never protected at all. The first arrest didn't make the news, and that was the point. A financial compliance issue. They called it. A quiet charge that pulled one man out of circulation without alerting the rest. Then another vanished from public view. Then another. The forum tried to explain it away. Health problems, travel, lawyers advising silence, but the tone had shifted from confidence to hunger. They needed reassurance, and the service couldn't give it. I learned later that the fixers had started turning on each other. Not out of guilt, but survival. When protection stops working, loyalty becomes expensive. I was asked for more, and this time I gave it all. The payment trails, the shell names, the memo language, the dates that lined up with the missing girls. Doors opened that had been sealed for years. Old reports were reopened without announcements. Evidence that had been lost suddenly existed again. One by one, families got calls that didn't promise miracles, only truth. Meanwhile, the service tried to save itself by offering refunds, then threats, then silence. The page went dark for good. Not with a message, not with an excuse, just gone. That's when the headlines finally came, careful and slow, about coordinated raids, about multiple cities, about men who had believed money was a shield. The untouchable were suddenly very touchable. Courtrooms filled with quiet faces that had never expected to sit there. And when the story reached the town where the girls had vanished, people didn't cheer. They cried. Because justice, when it arrives late, still hurts. I was offered something after that. A choice wrapped in plain words. A desk, a badge. A chance to keep doing the work without living in the dark. I thought about the sentence that started all of this. Protection for those who can afford it. And how thin it sounded now. I didn't take the job to be a hero. I took it because systems like that don't disappear forever. They wait for complacency. And the last message I ever saw from that world wasn't a threat or a plea. It was a single line posted by someone who finally understood the truth. We paid to be invisible and forgot that invisibility works both ways. Years later, people still ask how something like that could exist for so long, how so many powerful people believed they were untouchable. And the answer is always uncomfortable. It worked because it was quiet. It worked because it didn't look like crime. It looked like paperwork, delays, polite emails, and tired investigators running out of time. The service didn't break the law loudly. It bent it slowly, until everyone forgot what straight looked like. Most of the men who used it didn't see themselves as villains. They saw themselves as customers, as exceptions, as people who mattered more. And when the trials finally ended, when sentences were handed down and assets seized, there was no dramatic moment where the world felt fixed. Things just stopped rotting in secret. The girls' names were spoken again. The cases were no longer cold. Families finally heard the truth, even when the truth hurt. As for me, I learned something I carry every day now. Power doesn't come from being invisible. It comes from believing no one will ever look closely enough. That's the real weakness. Somewhere, another service like that is probably being built, with new words and new promises, selling the same lie to a new group of confident people. And maybe one day, someone else will stumble across it late at night and feel that same chill I felt. If they do, I hope they remember this. No matter how untouchable someone feels, systems fail, patterns leak, and invisibility always leaves a shadow. The dark web didn't make them gods. It just delayed the moment they had to face the light. I don't tell this story to sound brave, and I don't tell it to scare people. I tell it because the lie it exposed is still alive. Money can delay consequences, power can bend systems, and silence can last longer than it should, but none of it is permanent. The people who believed they were untouchable weren't defeated by one hacker or one agency. They were defeated by their own arrogance. They talked too freely, trusted too deeply, and forgot that every system is built by humans, and humans make mistakes. Somewhere tonight, someone is being promised protection, invisibility, control. Somewhere, someone believes they're above the law because they can afford to be. And somewhere else, someone is quietly watching, not rushing, not panicking, just waiting for the pattern to show itself. Because the truth is simple. Even if it's uncomfortable, no service can erase reality forever. No shadow stays hidden once light starts moving, and no one is truly untouchable. The dark web didn't save them. It only delayed the moment they had to face what they'd done. And that moment always comes.